schools were never meant to make you rich. They were never meant to make you rich. In fact, they were meant to make you a worker, right? If you research the education system as we know it, you will find that indeed it was meant for workers. It was meant to create workers. And if you think about it, how much of what you have learned throughout the years of you going to school are you applying right now in the job that you're in or in the circumstance that you're in the life that you're living, right? In fact, there have been articles that have been released saying that 90% of adults, 80% of adults, 95% of adults, different articles releasing that they do not believe that the traditional education system or high schools in general do not equip their children with real life skills, right? So that's what we're going to talk about. We are going to be talking about Mmusi Maimane, the former leader of the DA, who is now the leader of BOSA, the political party, right? He's been very vocal about education reform. He's been vocal about outdated teaching methods. He's been vocal about 30% pass mark in mathematics and other subjects as well. For those who do not know, 30%, if you could get 30% for some of the subjects, including, I think, mathematics as well, you are good to go. You can go to colleges, you can go to other tertiary institutions in South Africa. All right. So that he's been very vocal about that. He also mentions other things that he's vocal about that I do not understand why he's so vocal about it, because the objective of it being solved, it does not really solve the overall issue that we have as a society, right? And the other thing that we're going to be talking about is how to take your own skill, your own knowledge, and convert it into a profitable business, right? Without a degree, right? Because I think it is very essential to look at it in that angle, because if the education system is not successful at helping teenagers or young adults get the jobs that they want or get employed or get employment, right, then we need to come up with strategies. Us who are a little bit much older, whatever the case may be, right, we need to come up with strategies that we can give these youngsters to basically survive in the society that we live in, right? So we're going to be talking about that. So stick around, right? There is something for you at the end of this video that you're going to get for free. So stick around and comment if you want to comment, ask questions if you want to ask questions, like the video, subscribe, switch on the notification bell to get notified every time we post a video. Greetings, everybody. Welcome again to the NCS podcast. My name is collensilaule, and I help entrepreneurs and professionals break free from the rat race. Right. So again, Mmusi Maimane, very vocal about the education system in South Africa. He's been calling it out. He's been criticizing things like underqualified teachers, outdated teaching methods, low pass requirements, and a significant gap between public schools and private schools, right? He goes on to say that this is a disservice to the economy of South Africa, right? Just so you know that I'm not just mentioning this, right? So let's go to his Twitter account. Let's go to his Twitter account. So this is Mmusi Maimane's account, one of his posts, right? 2.1 million followers, right? He mentions something about education somewhere here at the bottom in this post. He says, this GNU is not serious about fixing education in this country. This GNU does not care that 40% of learners drop out before grade 12, right? 40% of learners drop out before grade 12. So I'm not sure if that number includes the primary school learners or only the high school learners, right? So 40%. So if 100 come in, only 60% are gonna write. Not that they're gonna pass, but 60% are gonna write. Let's say they come in at grade 8 and they pass all the way up to grade 12. 60% of those who came into grade 8, I'm assuming that those numbers are based on the eighth graders, not primary school students, right? So 60% are going to be the ones that are going to write, not to say that they're going to pass, right? So he continues to say that this GNU does not care that less than 30% of those who sit for maths exams get a pass mark of 50% or better, right? Less than 30%. So for anybody who gets 50% or above, that's less than 30%. And everybody who gets 50% and below, that's about 70%. 70%, right? That is also, again, a concerning issue. So let's quickly have a look at this video where Mmusi Maimane is speaking and another individual is also speaking. I never really got the name, mentioning their perspective on why the 30% pass mark exists, right? Let's have a look at this video.
A movement leader, Mmusi Maimane, says the exam pass mark of 30% sets young people up for failure. Maimane has garnered just over 1,500 signatures for a petition to the Basic Education Department to change the mark.
What I'm battling to understand is that at which level do you expect that it's satisfactory, that you've met the requirements at 30%? And then ultimately, for that same student, if they seek to achieve a university entrance, when they go to university, it is now common cause for many universities are now running bridging courses that force them to ensure that ultimately they have to correct the learning abilities of those students. So I hold the absolute view that ultimately we have to scrap the 30%. We have to be able to ask better of our students and our learners if we're going to achieve a reform in education.
What is misunderstood here is, one, that there's a lowering of standard. There is no such. Two, that there is a common, or there's a common number, yes, which is a pass mark for all the subjects across the system, which is not the case. We have said that there is a bachelor pass admission, and there's a diploma as well as a higher certificate. And for those three categories, there are different pass requirements. So the message is that if you get 30% for all subjects, you fail. So we cannot say that 30% is a pass mark. It can't. In every education system, there has to be a minimum pass for subjects, which is conditional.
For me, it's not about low pass requirements. It's not about low pass requirements. For me, it's about what exactly is being taught in those schools that will equip those teenagers and young adults with real life skills so that they can, conquer society or win in society, right? And the thing is, if you ask yourself the question that how much of what you are using now, how much of what you are applying now, right, is something that you actually got in primary, is something that you actually got in high school. Like how much of it? You'll probably say 10%, 5%, something along those numbers. And I doubt it's going to be more than 20%, right? Not more than 20% of the things that you're applying right now are things that you have acquired in terms of knowledge and skill throughout your 20 years of actually going to school. Yes, 20 years. I mean, preschool, 2 years probably. Primary school, 7 years. High school, 4 years, right? 5 years, right? And altogether, you're looking at about 14 years. 14 years, primary school, preschool, high school, right? And tertiary, maybe another 4 years, right? If you do not fail, that's about 18 years. If you do not fail, 18 years of your life, right? How much of what you have learned throughout those 18 years are you applying right now? And that is if you do not fail, right? It's going to be more than 20 years if you fail a couple of times, right? It's going to be more than 20 years. How much of that are you applying right now? Right. So this is a very big issue. So the pass mark issue, I don't think it's a major issue because again, you probably know somebody who got better marks than you, in school, but they're not doing as good as you are. Right. You probably know somebody who did, really bad in terms of, those pass marks in terms of mathematics, uh, probably in the 20%, on the 30%, and the 40%, but they're doing way better than you. So the overall experience that we all have probably can put us in a position where we say that this pass mark moving from 30% to 50%, it's not really going to help us. I mean, I understand why one would be concerned if they're in the operating table and somebody's about to operate on him, right? And that doctor only had a 30% pass mark. I would understand that. I mean, not to say it has an overall impact in the outcome of the procedure, but it brings, it questions your intelligence. It questions the intelligence of that doctor. You understand? So in that instance or in that extent, I would say it's understandable for somebody to be concerned about the pass marks. But the overall experience, the overall thing that we have witnessed in our own lives, it does not prove anything. Somebody getting 50% does not prove that somebody is going to be more successful than the other person. So it's concerning, yes, but the overall picture of people who are actually making it right nowadays, considering technology, AI, and all these different ways of actually making money, the education system is not really targeting the society that we live in, right? If you look at classrooms back in 1920 versus the classrooms that we see now, there's no change. It's a desk, it's a table, it's a desk and a chair, and some teacher teaching on that whiteboard or blackboard, whatever the case may be. It's the same for the past 100 years, right? But we have cars that have developed from going from 0 to 100 in 8 seconds, now going from 0 to 100 in 2 seconds. Industrial wise, there's been progress, but in terms of the education system, not necessarily progress. And Mmusi Maimane, on that post that we looked at, that Twitter post or X post, right? He mentioned that 40% of individuals, students drop out before reaching grade 12. 40%. 40%. What do you think happens with the 40% that drop out? What do you think? Right. So if if from the first grade, right, 1,000 students come through, right, 1,000, let's say a million students come through, right, before they reach grade 12, 40% of them are gonna drop out, meaning 400,000 of them are gonna drop out, right? From 1 million to 400,000, and 600,000 are probably going to write examinations or grade 12 examinations, right? Grade 12 examinations. But not all of them, not all of the 60% is going to pass, right? Or qualify to actually enroll in a tertiary institution, right? So that is a big number. The 40% of the 400,000, if we had a 1 million coming in from the first grade, right? 40%, 400,000 are going to be just sitting at home, right? And I don't think that's going to be the case, because who would want to just sit at home, right? Sit at home and probably watch television, be on social media, whatever the case may be. What are they going to see on social media? If they're at home, dropped out of school, looking at social media, they're going to look at all these individuals who are making it in life, driving fancy cars and the nice things, having, the nice life, right? Nice life problems, right? And what are they going to resort to in order to actually acquire those things? Because all of them, or most of them, in fact, all of them are going to want to actually acquire those things, even though they dropped off. That desire will not be quenched just because they dropped out of school. It's not going to be quenched, right? So, what are they going to resort to if they do not have the education or the skill to actually acquire the money that they need in order for them to get the thing that they want? They're going to resort to crime. They're going to resort to crime. We do not have crime in our country because of pass marks not being acquired, right? We do not have poverty in South Africa because of pass marks, right? We have crime and we have poverty because the skills that are being taught, or the subjects that are being taught in these institutions, are not real life skills, right? They're not there to help you survive. They're not there to help you win in the society that we're in. The reason we have crime is because the education system has failed to equip the people that are doing crime with the necessary skills to basically allow them to acquire the thing that they want to acquire. That is something that we really need to look into. That is something that we need to be concerned about. Right? That is something that we need to be concerned about. In my opinion, I think we can drop, if we could drop those 18 years to, I don't know, maybe 10 years, right? 10 years, whatever the case may be. I think we would have done, justice in terms of, the economy for the next probably 50, 100 years, right? We would have done really well, right? And the reason why I say that is because I play the piano as a hobby, right? I play the piano, and I somewhat, to some level, have a musical ear, right? And there's this church that I go to. I taught this kid how to play the piano, right? And without even knowing it, after I taught that kid, a whole bunch of kids started coming through, right? And we were like, to a point we were like about 14, and 14 that were serious, and maybe 7, 8 that were not, that were on and off, around 20 something, just over 20 something, right? At a time, right? And right now, as I speak, right, there are kids that can play in terms of the piano, in terms of drums, they are full on band. A full on band. They can play on weddings, events, whatever the case may be. You can call them, whatever the case may be. They decent, right? They good, right? And if you look at the time that it took me to actually train them, it took me about a year and a half, 2 years, right? And they can play. 2 years and they can play. They can actually go out and say, okay, I am actually selling this service of actually playing at events, whatever the case may be. One of them, actually the first one that I trained, can actually put together music. Right? He can put together music. He puts together gospel music and some beats and stuff like that. Right? He's very musical, and I was able to help him understand music and learn how to play the piano in within a year and a half, maximum 2 years. Right? So can somebody just tell me why does it take someone 18 years, if he does not fail, to actually acquire the skill that they need in order to get the job that they want to get, or to acquire the things that they want to acquire, the house, the money, the cars, whatever the case may be? 18 years versus 2 years. I mean, okay, that's another way of looking at it. That's another way of looking at it. So we do need to get to a point where we say, you know what, here are the things that are working for us. Here are the things that we are figuring out about life, right? And then take those skills and then, pass it down to the kids. Before we get to the point where I give you the steps to building a profitable business, let's have a look at a video where Elon Musk is being interviewed, and he says he doesn't have an aerospace degree, right? An aerospace degree, right? Let's have a look at it.
How did you get the expertise to be the chief technology officer of a rocket ship company?
I do have a physics background. That's helpful as a foundation. And then I read a lot of books and talked to a lot of smart people.
You're self-taught?
Yeah. Self-taught, yes, meaning I don't have an aerospace degree.
So how did you go about acquiring the knowledge?
Well, like I said, I read a lot of books, talked to a lot of people.
Very interesting video. In fact, in no way am I trying to justify that you do not need to go to school. I'm not trying to justify that. Right? I'm not trying to justify that. In fact, if you look at the video, he does mention that he had a physics background. So he got some education in physics, right? And that helped him with his journey in terms of aerospace, whatnot, right? So education is required, and the education will help you, get the other skills that will help you get the things that you really want to get: finances, the house, the cars, the riches, whatever the case may be, the business, whatever the case may be. Education, very important, but also very important to note that he acquired that aerospace knowledge without a degree, and basically is making money out of it. Right? So it is possible for you to get a skill without going the traditional route, right? And actually start making money out of that. Now, I'm mentioning this for people who do not have the money to go to tertiary institutions, the people who do not have the money to go to college and whatnot, right? So I need to mention that. I cannot just throw everybody in one box and say, go to school, right? Some of them cannot go to school because of the money, and they do not have the bursary. So for those people, they need to also consider that it is possible for them to acquire a skill that they need, to acquire the finances that they need, that will help them build the business that they need, for them to acquire the riches and the wealth that they've been hoping for all their lives, right? So very important to kind of note that. And that brings us to step number one. Step number one: identifying the skill that somebody would be willing to pay for. Let me rephrase that: identifying the skill and knowledge or knowledge that somebody would be willing to pay for, right? And in fact, I think I should divide that into two, because there might be two different people here. There might be people who do not have a skill completely, right? They are stranded, they are in a tough position, and they need to make money now, right? So before you actually try and locate a skill or knowledge that somebody would be willing to pay for, try and figure out what you are good at, right? What are you good at? And is what you are good at good enough for somebody to pay some good money for, right? So, for example, I mentioned that I do play the piano, for example, right? I can use that, do a couple of events, play in some events, make a little bit of money to acquire maybe that 10,000 Rand, that 20,000 Rand that I need to basically start the business that I really want to start, whatever the case may be, right? I can use what I already have to make the little money that I want to actually build the business that I want to build, to acquire the things and resources that I want to acquire. Right. So before actually locating a skill that somebody else would be willing to pay for, look for a skill that you are currently good at. What are you currently good at? Locate that and ask yourself the question: is this something that somebody would be willing to pay for? Now, initially, obviously, it's not going to be the money that you probably require as a start. You're probably looking for 1 million. You're probably looking for 500,000. But you need to look at your resources. What resources do you currently have now that will help you get to step B or step 2, whatever the case may be? You need to hold the bull by the horns, right? You need to hold the snake by the head, right? Make sure it doesn't bite you, instead of holding it by the tail and basically stepping back and running backward all the time, hoping that it does not turn back and bite you, right? So you need to hold the bull by the horns by identifying what you are good at first before you identify a skill that somebody else would be willing to pay for, right? So you need to also look at, teaching that particular skill. You need to look at coaching and solving a problem with that skill or knowledge, right? You need to get to that point, right? So a lot of people overlook this part of self introspection, looking at what they have. They want a particular thing, and they heard that, oh, you know what, being a nurse is going to make you some money, being a teacher is going to make you some money. Oh, if you become a teacher, for sure you're going to get a job. I'm sure you've heard arguments like that, right? It separates you from the normal, from the normal people, and it puts you in a position where you become different because you are self introspective. You might end up doing something that you really like because you self introspected first, right? First of all, skill, knowledge, what you are good at, right? And find a way. Step 2, find a way to package it, package that knowledge, package that skill into a profitable offer, right? Into a profitable offer, not business, offer, into a profitable offer. So, for example, I may say that I am selling a microphone. I'm selling a microphone and I'm selling it for, I don't know, 100 rands, right? But instead of selling it for 100 rands, I'm going to say, if you buy 2, I'm going to sell it to you for 180. Right? I can sell it to you, 2 of them for maybe 150. So I have restructured the offer, right? If somebody were to buy these microphones individually for 100 rands, which is an example, right? For 100 rands, they would pay 200 rand for 2. But I'm saying get 2 or even 3 for 220 rands, and they would save 80 rands if they were to get 3. So the offer basically puts somebody in a position where they'll be like, you know what? Yeah, I run a church. I run a church, for example, right? I run a church. I need mics for chorus leaders and whatnot, worship team, whatnot, right? So this offer would be great for me, right? This offer would be great for me. So the person is no longer spending 220 because the mics are worth 220. They are spending 220 because of the offer that is enticing and what problem it solves. You understand? So the preacher or the owner of the church may have 3 worshippers, but they had money. They had money, maybe 220 rand. That's all they had, right? And they couldn't afford 3, and they just wanted to buy 2, whatever the case may be, right? With 200 rands, right? Because of that offer, that 220 rand offer for 3 instead of 300 rands, you are solving their problem. So the offer that solves the problem basically puts you in a better position than basically saying, I'm selling this for 100 rands. Hopefully you get what I'm saying. Right. So step number 1, identify a skill that you are good at, or identify a skill and or knowledge that somebody would be willing to pay for. Right. Number 2, package that skill and or knowledge into a profitable offer. It must be a profitable offer. It's profitable when it solves a problem, right? It's profitable when it solves a problem. So there are different ways to package the offer, right? We spoke about, you being a coach, you putting together a course, an ebook, providing a service. You're packaging that offer. You have the offer, now you need to package it. Can be in an ebook, can be in a course, right? Which leads us to step number 3, monetize it with a simple system, right? Now, the likes of Alex Hormozi have done that, right? They are on social media, they are on TikTok, they have a system, right? They have the system, right? And it is digital. It is the internet, right? That they're using to actually acquire the money that they have acquired. Again, Alex Hormozi has a business, acquisition.com, that is worth hundreds of millions of dollars. He makes millions and he makes millionaires, right? So he's using social media his advantage is social media, right? He's got millions of followers on social media, right? So you need to find a way to get somebody from Russia to buy the product or the service that you're offering, right? You need to find a way to get somebody from India, to Japan, United States, Brazil, whatever the case may be, to get the product or service that you are offering. And you can only do that. You can only do that with social media. You can only do that with the internet, right? You need to find a way to make money via social media. You need to find a way to make money out of the thing that you are good at in social media. I have this saying that says the new banks is social media, right? And your new credit score is your ability to market yourself, right? Your ability to market yourself on social media is your credit score. If you do not know about social media, if you do not know or do research on how social media works, how all these apps work, right? And why YouTube basically started doing short form content, right? Somewhere in 2017 or 2018, whatever the case may be, right? If you do not know all these things, if you do not know all these things that are essential in terms of you having that skill to actually make money on that social media platform, aka bank, right? Right? You won't make money, right? You won't make money, right? Again, let me repeat that saying. The new banks is social media platforms, and your ability to market yourself is your new credit score, right? Very important, very important. So you need to use social media platforms, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook. I've heard others saying that Facebook is old-fashioned, whatever the case may be. Stick with me for a second and do some research when it comes to Facebook, right? Do some research when it comes to Facebook, right? What is the market share for Facebook? What is the look at the market share that Facebook has, right? And you tell me that Facebook is still old fashioned in terms of finding clients, in terms of finding people who would be willing to pay for your service, right? Social media platform like Facebook, a social media platform like Facebook is the way to go, right? But that also depends on what you are selling. That also depends on what you are selling, right? There are some products and or services that it will be harder to sell if you're on TikTok. There's some products or services that it will be harder to sell if you're on Instagram. Some it will be harder to sell if you're on Facebook, right? For example, the last time I checked, you cannot, advertise poultry farming in Facebook. You cannot do that, right? Apparently, it has something to do with animal rights, whatever the case may be, right? So you cannot do that. So you need to be sure and certain of which social media platform is perfect for the business that you want to start, right? And that requires some research, right? Very important. You need to use email marketing. Email marketing is one of the most underrated ways to ensure that there's a steady stream of income, right? So you can basically get people, again, remember, I spoke about you need to find a way to get somebody from the United States, India, Russia, Japan, Brazil, whatever the case may be, to be able to get that product or service that you're offering right here in South Africa or in Africa, right? You need to find a way to do that. So how are you going to do that? You're going to get to a point where you need to get their details, right? For them to actually get the product or service that they're actually paying for, right? Those details, some of them are going to end up paying, some of them are not going to pay. So you need to ensure that you still have the contacts of those who have not paid or have not bought that particular product or service, and keep on marketing to them whether or not they are on social media or not, right? Because there's going to come a time where they're going to have to check their emails, and it will probably have something to do with their work. It will probably have have something to do with their project that they're probably running, whatever the case may be, right? But you will have the chance to be in front of them while they do that, instead of just being in front of them when they're on social media only. You understand? So it's another way of looking at it. Email marketing, very important. There's software for that. There's AI for that. There's a whole lot of things for that. You need to get to a point where you understand technology. It is the number one way how one can actually start making money in the internet, using social media platforms and actually sending them through a funnel and actually getting them to buy, right? Very important. There's a lot of things that I can share about this. It's just a lot. It's just a lot. So there are three things that we mentioned here. Step number one, identifying a skill and or knowledge that you are good at, right? And then identifying a skill and or knowledge that somebody else would be willing to pay for. That would be number one, right? Remember, we broke it up into two. And step number two is packaging your knowledge into a profitable offer. Packaging your knowledge into a profitable offer, right? Think about the offer. How are you going to put that offer together? Then package it, right? I don't know how you're going to package it. You're going to package it in a course, ebook, coaching, a service, whatever the case may be, right? And the third one, the last one, is monetize it with a simple system, right? Monetize it with a simple system. You're going to use social media platforms, right? Social media platforms, the right social media platforms, right? You're going to use email marketing, and there's a whole lot of other things that we can look at, right? That we're going to look at, right? And on the next video, we're going to be talking about mindsets, right? There's probably going to be a video about mindset, which I think is very important considering what we've discussed, the 40% of students who are dropping off before they even reach grade 12, and them trying to probably start a business, and them trying to make money, whatever the case may be, right? And probably individuals who have a 9 to 5, right? And they want to start a side hustle, right? There's a mindset that you need to have when it comes to that, right? You have a 9 to 5. There's a mindset that requires you to actually go through that 9 to 5 process, right? There's a mindset that you need to have for that particular life, right? When it comes to having a business of your own that is profitable, right? You need to have a different type of mindset. The mindsets of those two scenarios are completely different, completely different, right? So we're gonna probably have a video on the next video that has to do with mindset, right? So very important. Tell me what you think. Do you think that schools are actually providing the real life skills that are needed for the youngsters to actually survive in the society that we live in? Right? Comment down below. I'd really appreciate that. And if you have a skill that you think you can monetize right now, let me know about it in the comment sections. Let me know about it in the comment sections. I will personally reply to as many of those as possible. As long as you're letting me know about a skill that you think you can monetize, I will personally reply to that one. If you found this information very insightful, I would really love it if you could just click the subscribe button, right? Switch on the notification bell to get notified every time we post a video. I would really love it if you could like the video to basically ensure that YouTube or any other social media platform sees that this is a very likable video and it's very helpful. All right. Your comments as well, I would really love that. All right. I would really appreciate that. Right. We've just scratched the surface. We've just scratched the surface when it comes to education. In fact, I would like to talk more about education and the strategies that we can use to basically fix it and whatnot. We can have a discussion on the comment sections as to what you think the next video should be regarding anything that I may have mentioned throughout the video. If you want more step-by-step strategies in terms of building an income stream, right? Just keep on communicating with us via the comment sections, and I will be willing to help and probably even again create a video that concerns your particular scenario. And lastly, there's an ebook that you can get for free that will help you monetize your knowledge, your skill in 7 days, or it will basically help you begin to have an understanding of how one can go about monetizing their knowledge, right, digitally, right? So look into that. There's a link in the description. If you're interested, click on it and you will get an ebook for free that will help you through the process, right? Again, this is the NCS podcast. My name is collensilaule. See you next time.